Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is turning the other cheek. And when is that generosity and when does it become foolishness? So it should be an interesting conversation. Before we get started, though, let's take a couple minutes to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And you know what? I don't know if we are actually live here. Yeah, maybe we are. Let me see. I just want to confirm that. And then we will take a minute or two to get present. Yeah, it looks like we're good. Okay, so let's take a deep breath. Oh, there's Roslyn. Hi, good morning, Roslyn. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you here with everybody else that's joining us. And we're just going to settle in and take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, and creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the motion, the pressure, the temperature, and the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good to be here with you. And today we're talking about turning the other cheek. And this is coming out of a situation with a person that I had an agreement with, and they continue to push the boundaries of the agreement without my permission, like assuming my permission. So what we're talking about here is turning the other cheek, allowing for giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, right? And it's interesting, you know, where people show themselves, right? People tell us who they are. We have an interaction with somebody. It maybe breaks trust or pushes the boundaries of trust, and we let it go. And then it happens again and we let it go. And maybe it happens again. And the question is, how often do we turn the other cheek? Do we allow something that feels like a violation with the expectation that it's not going to happen again? So this is, you know, this is our hopefulness. And it's also, we've talked about this a lot, actually, where it's kind of lunacy to expect that a zebra is going to change its stripes, right? That a zebra isn't going to be a zebra, or a scorpion's not going to be a scorpion, right? It's kind of a space of denial. When we give somebody the benefit of the doubt, the question is, how many times do we allow that before we stop turning the other cheek? It's like you get slapped on one cheek, get slapped on the other, and then what? And so it's interesting because it's a difficult situation to be put in when someone assumes your grace. When someone makes the overt assumption. Good morning, good evening, Gia. Welcome. It's great to have you here with us this morning. And so for folks that don't know or that are listening, and what is this good morning, good evening thing? It is because Gia is in India and it's a different time zone. So it's evening for her while it's morning for us. Anyway, we're really talking about people taking advantage of other people's goodwill. And there's maybe it's not such a fine line to walk. It feels like it might be a fine line, but maybe it isn't. Where in this situation, I essentially loaned somebody some money, and we made an agreement where we said, what is going to be feasible for you, that no matter what, you will be able to honor the terms of this agreement. And that was in consideration for them. We made an agreement, and they just said that they're not going to be able to make that deadline, and they'll let me know when they'll be able to pay. No, it's not even a matter of money at this point, right? And they said, then thank you for your grace, which is sort of an assumptive sale, which often works because it's very difficult for people to say, wait a second, there's no grace here. This is where you're actually taking advantage of my generosity and grace. You didn't request it, you took it. And it's interesting to be in this situation. Like I didn't get into the situation unknowingly. I'm not, this person is kind of meeting the expectations that I had in a way. Like I didn't project them, but based on past behavior, this isn't really a surprise. So I can't say I'm disappointed, because that would mean that I didn't know that this was a likely possibility. But up until this point, in this particular situation, I let it slide. This person said, okay, thank you for your grace. And I would respond by thanks for the heads up. And today I didn't. And today I actually responded to say, you know what, it feels like you didn't ask for my grace, you took it. You didn't ask for my understanding, you took it, you assumed it. And what I recognize is that, and I was able to say, I feel manipulated. And this is an interesting thing, because I've seen other people caught in this pattern with this particular person, actually. and feeling resentful and angry and frustrated at this situation. Rosalind says, it's like putting your hand in the cage and getting bitten. I put less faith that the person won't bite to protect myself. The agreement is that I'm supposed to allow that behavior no matter what, because it's family. Right, right. I get you, Rosalind. And in this case, this person isn't family, but still, it's not okay. It's not okay behavior for someone to assume that it's okay for them to make agreements and break them again and again and again. And then to say, thanks for being okay with this. Because that's the higher manipulation, is like, thanks for being okay with it. Well, I'm not okay with it. And the thing is that it's often difficult for people to speak up and say, guess what? I'm not okay with it. Because then it looks like we're creating a rift, like there's something that we're the antagonist. You know, it's this weird dynamic. And the fact is, I could be just holding resentment about this situation, when the truth is that it was easily predictable that it would turn out like this. So I can't, like I said, I can't be disappointed. But in the past, I've just kind of, I've allowed my grace to be assumed. And this time I didn't. And therefore, by speaking that, then I don't feel the resentment, because I don't feel like I was choked into a corner somehow. I actually was able to speak. What's so for me is, you didn't ask me, you told me. You didn't ask for my grace, you assumed it. You didn't involve me in this situation. You're just telling me how it's going to be. So there's a lack of respect, in a way, for the relationship. I think that that's what's at the core of this. So anyway, I want to address this weird dynamic where it seems that, you know, there's one person who is creating this breach of agreement, breach of respect, whatever you want to call it. In this case, it's a breach of an agreement that we made, designed especially to accommodate this person. And then they breached the agreement and are assuming that it's okay on this side. I don't know if they really are assuming that or not, but they're saying, thank you for the grace that you're giving me, which is assumptive, right? And it's not really leaving an opening for my expression. But, and had I allowed myself not to take that opening, even though there wasn't an opening, had I not allowed myself to make that opening to express what was really so for me, I would feel resentful. I would feel, I would be stuck in feeling manipulated. And I think that that's too often the case, that we just don't say what's so for us because we're afraid that it's going to create more friction. And it may be that this person will come back with an attack, or again, making me wrong about it. It's possible that that may happen. And I'm willing to stand in what's so for me. And I think that oftentimes we're not. And oftentimes we're just going to stuff it or swallow it to keep the peace, so to speak, and allow people to take advantage. And it's kind of like when you put your hand in the cage and you get bitten. If you keep putting your hand in the cage, or if you don't take some kind of other action to mitigate that, of course, then it's on you, right? Like, what is it? Hurt me once, that's on you. Hurt me twice, that's on me. I'm not talking about shutting down or closing down, but I am talking about having a willingness to express what's so for us without, in a responsible way, so that we're not creating an attack. So in this situation, I said, you're assuming that it's okay. It's not okay with me. You know, I went out of my way to make an agreement that worked for you. And you're not honoring that agreement. And so it undermines my trust. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I think the inspiration or the reason that I'm talking about this is because I'm in the midst of the discomfort around this. And I recognize that so many of us are often stuck in situations, not stuck, often presented with situations that are really uncomfortable, that it's uncomfortable to, to speak up about what's going on with us without anger, you know, without vindictiveness, without vengeance, but to just really say what's there. It's interesting because we often don't give ourselves the grace of allowing the feelings that we have, or allowing the perspective that we have, that we it's just so interesting how many different emotions and perspectives come into play, like trying not to rock the boat. And in the past with this person, I've been generous around this kind of action. But the thing is that by doing that, I have allowed it to perpetuate, right? And so it's on me that this happened again because I made room for it to happen, right? So I'm accountable for it. And it's interesting because there's a lot of intertwining, like Rosalind, you were talking about, like you're supposed to allow a behavior because it's family. And in family, there are all kinds of interrelationships and interconnections. And this one might say something to that one, might say something, you know, like there's this entanglement. And a ripple here could turn into a big wave over there. So we walk around on tiptoes, like walking on eggshells, because we don't want to upset the illusion of calm, right? But what if we can speak our truth? If we don't speak our truth, and I don't mean like finger pointing or blaming or shaming or anything like that, but by speaking what's so, is like, we made this agreement, you're not keeping that agreement, you're assuming my grace, I feel manipulated. And I also am losing my trust in your word. Not you're not trustworthy, not you're manipulative, but to be owning what's happening in our space. I think that there are ways of responsible communication. And ways of extending respect to one another in that communication. So it's just interesting. I'm still processing this, as you can tell, because I know I'm talking in circles, but I think it's really interesting to see all the emotional dynamics that are at play. My initial response was, okay, thanks for the heads up. And then I was sitting with it, and it was like, you know what, this is not okay. This is not okay. And how can I address it responsibly? And I think that even if feathers are ruffled, even if it causes ripples, when we communicate responsibly with each other and authentically, we open up possibilities for deepening relationship, or actually the dissolution of a relationship. And this is actually an interesting thing to be talking about too, is that oftentimes, in order to truly have relationship, we need to be willing to risk it. And so to truly have relationship, we need to be willing to say what's really going on, not to just stuff it, to own it as our experience. But if we don't communicate it, if we withhold it, if we stuff it, what happens is that that's creating a greater and greater rift. And so turning the other cheek, in some respects, can be dissociating from engagement with someone, with relationship. And it's awkward. There's no question that it can be really awkward to say what's really so, especially when someone is projecting an assumption, like when there's an assumptive close kind of thing. It's like sales. It's like, I'm doing this, thanks for understanding. Well, it's like, well, wait a second. You're assuming I'm understanding, or you're assuming I'm okay. And we'll often roll with that. But is that authentic? And is it responsible? I guess is also an important question. Is it responsible? Are we being responsible to ourselves and to the other person and to the relationship by just letting it slide without calling it out, without making it visible? Is that really the generous thing to do, rather than saying, hey, you know what, we should have a conversation about this because it's really not okay? Or I want you to know how this is landing on this end. It's such a dance. It's such a dance that we do. And it takes stepping out of our comfort zone to be able to have relationship, I think. So in this particular situation, had I not said anything at this point, I would just be pushing this person so much further away from me. Whereas now we're in it. It gets messy. Life gets messy. Relationships get messy. Communicating authentically can get messy. But turning the other cheek after a point may make us the fool. But even more so, it's pushing us out of relationship. It's separating ourselves from authentic engagement. unless we're turning the other cheek and saying, listen, I'm turning the other cheek. I'm going to give you another shot here. Or I'm going to let this slide. But I want you to know that I'm aware, and this is my experience here too. And I want to make an agreement that it's not going to happen again. Or whatever. So it's an interesting dance. It's an interesting thing right now to be in the thick of it and to be trying to sort through, to be in alignment with my values, to be in integrity with myself in dealing with the situation. And I think that that's something that so many of us face when we feel wronged or unseen or unheard or disrespected or taken advantage of or whatever, that we often just sort of suck it up. But the thing is that remains there. Whatever the seed of that is ends up festering unless we can find a way to communicate about it responsibly. So I just want to say thank you to you for being present, like in the discomfort of this with me, because it's just messy. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. And that's okay. That's a way that we can find our way into a deeper connection or not. But without that willingness to step into the messiness, into the authenticity, into what's really there for us, there's going to be that wall between us of the things unsaid. And of the resentments or judgments that are held that we haven't been able to relieve ourselves of. So no conclusion here, no best path here, just being in the discomfort of the messiness. So Rosalind says, so a response to the other person could be like calling them out. It's unfortunate your misperception about me, saying something to the effect that it's not okay that you blah, 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 add a way of being you'd rather see. Well, if we're adding a way of being that we'd rather see, then there's all kinds of judgment. I didn't say, you don't keep your agreements. I was speaking really about my experience and just saying, this is not okay with me. You assume that it is, but it isn't. And my closing question was, where do we go from here? I said, I feel this has violated my trust. It feels out of integrity to me. And not saying you are this, you are that. And I have to go. I'm so sorry, but this is a rich conversation, but I gotta go. So thank you so much for your engagement. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I so appreciate you and thank you for being messy with me. And until next time, so much love to you.